we have Lisa Greenstein, who has put together an incredible history of the Berkeley Baba group. She's worked quite hard on it and really has pieced together much would have gotten lost information. She was quite the detective in putting it all together. Lisa Greenstein heard about Meher Baba in 1975 in Santa Monica, California, and became part of Phyllis Frederick's group until moving to Northern California to attend the College of Arts and Crafts in 1976. Lisa did a stint at as a Meristan caretaker, which we'll find out more of what Meristan was, in the late 70s. She has been a long time an active member of NBC-NC, chairing the nominating committee and coordinating the e-newsletter for many years. Lisa felt inspired to research and write up the history of the Berkeley Baba Group as it is pertinent to the issue of the bylaw revision. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. As I got into doing this, and I talked to so many of you here and also to people far away, can you hear me okay? This is nearly a 50-year history since the Berkeley Baba Group started, and it's still, my history's still growing. I'm still collecting more and more really interesting stories, and it's about 18 pages, and I can't do that in this abbreviated form. So really what I'm focusing on here is essentially, I've boiled it down and summarized it to mainly the history of the Berkeley Baba Group as we've had influence from the Mandali, contact with the Mandali, and a relationship with Sufism Reoriented, and that relationship has changed through the years. So I'll begin. And I'm going to talk a little bit quickly in order to get through all this. And the longer version of this, when I get it completed, I will make it available. And there's a lot of really wonderful, fun stories in there that I couldn't really include in this time. So Meher Baba League was the original name of this group, and it was started by Paula Gordon along with Peter Brooks in 1966. The group met on the UC Berkeley campus in the Student Union. Paula and Peter were Sufi murids of Ivy Deuce, who was the Murshid of Sufism Reoriented at that time. Paula told me, I got the idea that it would be nice to let people know about Baba who would not be interested in Sufism Reoriented. The original purpose of the campus group was also to campaign against the epidemic use of psychoactive drugs among college students, and to do that in Meher Baba's name. Paula spoke about this with Murshida Deuce, and she encouraged her. At the first meeting, Paula, Peter, and Winifred Kershaw, who you all know, read from Listen Humanity, and only one other person showed up. The League eventually became very well attended at the campus, and regular Friday night meetings consisted of reading from Meher Baba's writings, talks by those who met Meher Baba, and showing films of Baba. In 1967, in a letter to Paula Gordon from Adi Kairani, Baba wants me to tell you that he is very happy that you are spreading his message so well with the help of his other dear ones through the Meher Baba League. From the late 1960s into the 70s, there was an influx of Baba lovers into the Bay Area, many who were wishing to take Sufi candidates classes. At that time, it was very difficult to become accepted into the order. You had to prove to Ivy Deuce that you were very sincere as a Baba lover, eager to become a Sufi, and that you met certain criteria. At that time, they did not accept or retain people who were not financially established, who would not refrain from having sex outside of marriage, who were homosexual, who smoked marijuana or used drugs, or who were too independent-minded, or if it was felt that they just didn't have a strong connection with the Murshida. Many people took the candidates class more than once, hoping to get accepted, and many decided it just didn't suit them. So those who did not join the Sufi order often became involved with Meher Baba League. A group of people who had attended the Great Darshan of 1969 also came to live in Berkeley after the Darshan, and they orbited into the League. So Baba League became a mix of people, some who had no interest in joining Sufism Reoriented, and some who were just not accepted into the order. From 1968 to 1969, Baba League was run by Ursula Reinhardt, Mick Hamilton, Rick Chapman, Robert Dreyfus, and James Taylor. They planned the weekly meetings, and it was not unusual to have 100 or more people attend. The audience kept demanding to hear more speakers who had met Baba, so those who had met him would just take turns every week telling their story. And according to Ursula, one evening the core group met for dinner before the meeting, and no one wanted to tell their story yet again. So they decided that the subject of that meeting would be, "We resign. Y'all got to grow up and make something happen." After the We Resign meeting, a small committee formed to keep things going at the Tilden Room, and not long after that, an announcement was made at a Friday night meeting by Roger Blewett and Donna Hemmett that the group was just too disorganized and they were going to run the group. Later, the group had a 5-person board. They added 3 more people. Most of those board members had taken the Sufi candidate classes and were turned down, but they still very much wanted to work under the aegis of Sufism Reoriented. According to a document from 1972, a Baba League document, it said Baba League was not a membership organization, but anyone could apply for associate membership. That board at that time was self-appointed and self-perpetuating. Joan Dimful Harland recalls that around this same time, Murshid Adus announced at a San Francisco Sufi Center meeting that the Sufi group and Meher Baba League were now formally separated. The Friday night meetings were formal, and by the mid-1970s, they became mostly speakers or tapes of Murshid Adus and the Sufi preceptors. There was very little sharing allowed from the attendees, and many Baba lovers described that group as the pseudo-Sufis. Also in the Berkeley Bay area, there were a few other groups around that time. I can't really go into too much detail about all that, but there was Meher Baba Information, which was nicknamed The Box, and that was a nonprofit organization that was founded by Rick Chapman in 1967, and mainly they provided information to people who wanting to know about Baba. There was Meher Stan, which Mick Hamilton and Ursula started in 1968. It was in the basement of a Berkeley apartment complex. And when they finished it, they took photos of that place and they sent them to Baba. And Baba wrote back and said he was happy. And those meetings were on Monday nights. They were very informal and more bhakti expression. And those were the meetings that I used to go to when I first moved up to the Bay Area in 1976. So by 1978, there was a felt sense that the running of the Friday night meetings had become a kind of burden to the board. And a groundswell of unrest developed among the Baba lovers who wanted to change the group's governance style to be more inclusive and more democratic. Ellen Bailey said that she was appointed to the board around 1973 because she was a dedicated worker. But she was never asked what she thought, and she thought that the group should be democratic. So she began visiting Phyllis Frederick in Los Angeles and talking with her about how the LA group was run. Phyllis invited her to attend one of their board meetings, and she was given their bylaws. Phyllis recounts about their group in the Awakener magazine. She said, "In New York City, my old hometown, I was instrumental in getting Baba House started in the village. With the help of Henry Kashouti, we formed our first nonprofit Baba Corporation, bylaws and all, which later became a model for our group here in LA and also for the Meher Baba League in Northern California. Other groups have also taken to the democratic form, which I feel carries out Baba's guidelines given to me in the 1950s. So private meetings of different circles of Baba lovers in the Baba group started meeting to discuss how they wanted to see the group change. In 1978, the board at that time wrote a letter to several members of the Mandali asking them for advice about what to do. And Erich and Mani wrote this letter back. And I'm just paraphrasing because it's too long to do the whole thing. What they said was, it would have been best to have had a round of talks with the dissenters to allow everyone to ventilate their feelings. Mani and Erich suggested that there must be set discipline, but it must not smack of regimentation. They said, if we gather in his name and love, we should sink our differences in the ocean of his love. And he said that this would not only please him, but it would make his presence felt more strongly. The board decided to put this issue of democracy up for a vote and of the membership. And they were, even though they were associate members. And the majority did vote for democracy. So in the spring of '79, a core group met to draft the new bylaws, and Dick Anthony did the writing of those. Madeline Dukas was a board member during this transition time, and she recalls that when the Chapel Hill group had a dispute over who should be the leader in 1967, Sharon Harmon Muir wrote to Baba asking him if there should be a head of the group and who it should be. And Baba responded that he himself would be the head of the group. Madeline said this statement inspired the model adopted by the Berkeley group. The sentiment is that the group is led by beloved Baba, and the various officers are elected to serve the interests of the group and get stuff done that needs doing. This includes the so-called president, who does not make policy nor assume any kind of role of leadership in a spiritual sense. By 1979, the bylaws, December, the bylaws were voted on and accepted by the group, and the new board of directors was elected. Madeline remembers that somehow, so this is after the new board, and somehow there was an attitude that the Berkeley Baba group were either Sufi rejects or those not good enough to take the high road and become Sufis. The members of the Berkeley group did not feel in the least inferior in their spiritual lives and in their relationship with Baba. There was an interview with Ivy Deuce in the book The New Religions by religious scholar Jacob Needleman in 1970, and it hit a nerve in the group. In this book, Ivy is quoted saying, "We do not feel we are here for everybody. This is why we have been instrumental in starting Baba groups like the Baba League in Berkeley. The members can be free to love Baba, but they mostly love Baba on their own terms, whereas Sufis learn to love Baba on his terms, which is a whole lot harder." Dick Anthony volunteered to meet with Ivy Deuce to discuss this matter with her, as well as to fill her in on the reorganization of the group. The meeting occurred and it was cordial, and Dick invited her to give a talk to Baba League as a sign to those who considered her an authority that she acknowledged the validity of the newly structured group, and she did do that. She gave a talk at the Quaker Meeting Hall. So now I'm going on to the changes in Sufism and the Mandali's warnings and the impact on Meher Baba League and, with the new Murshid coming. Dr. James Mackay went to India for the first time in the fall of 1977, and Adi Keirani visited the U.S. and met privately with him. In 1979, before Adi passed away, he insisted that that Meher Baba's last warning be reissued and sent out worldwide. So, during the 70s and 80s, the Sufis produced a public play for Meher Baba each year for Baba's birthday. The plays would portray some aspect of Baba's life and work. They were beautiful productions, and all of the local Baba lovers were always invited to attend. The last open invitation Sufi play was attended by James Mackay. Someone who was there recalled that James Mackay walked in to take his seat dressed in white, surrounded by Sufis who were similarly dressed. Some were walking backwards in front of him in a kind of bobbing step and with their arms outstretched, and some behind him as if to protect him. In 1979 or 80, I'm not sure, James Mackay was initiated into the Sufi order and was made a preceptor. Stories began to flow to members of the Berkeley group who had friends in Sufism that the tenor and focus was rapidly changing in the order. Friends of Sufis were told that much more emphasis was being placed on surrendering to and giving homage to the Murshida, and that Ivy Deuce was telling individuals that Jim was stationed on the sixth plane, while Jim was telling the Sufis that Ivy was also stationed on the sixth plane, though veiled. He claimed that he could see Sanskaric patterning and could help people to remove blocks. He was being treated as a holy person. The Mandali started receiving letters from concerned Sufis on both coasts about their specific observations in the change of focus. And then Peggy and Andy Muir, who were longtime Washington, D.C. Sufi preceptors and hosts for the D.C. Baba group, were deeply hurt by and eventually expelled. Dr. Mackay was giving public seminars in California, and the local Baba lovers were invited to attend, but the Mandali advised Baba lovers to stay away from Jim Mackay. So I have a letter from Renee Busanich from the summer of 1980 when she visited India with the Mandali, and all of this was kind of going on. So I'm going to read most of her letter. In August of 1980, I went to India. At that time, I was one of the board members on the Berkeley Baba League. Prior to going to India, I had attended at least one of the talks given by Dr. Mackay at the Sufi Center in Walnut Creek. At that time, Dr. Mackay was giving public talks for Sufis and non-Sufis. As it seemed likely he would be the next Murshid, several of us went to hear him. By the time I got to India in August, the Mandali had some information about Dr. Mackay and how he conducted his talks. They were aware that he appeared to be working energetically in the room during his presentations. There was some general concern in the Baba group that he was being portrayed as having some special powers. This aspect seemed to be very exciting to the people we knew who were Sufis. While I was in India, the women Mandali to whom I was close asked me my impressions. They were interested in whether or not I was attracted to him as a teacher. I could tell that they had a growing concern about Dr. Mackay making special claims regarding his own spiritual status. There had been other issues in India with certain people declaring that they were Meher Baba's charge men or were channeling Baba, as if they had a special role as intermediaries. The Mandali were very aware and sensitive to these issues, as Baba had warned them many times that this would happen. They reminded us that Baba had said that he was available to his lovers directly and did not need any intermediaries. I believe that Dr. Mackay had already been to India at that time. The Mandali did not say anything negative about him to me. However, several of the women Mandali asked me to join them on the porch at Merazad. I specifically recall sitting with Rano, Mani, Mehru, Dr. Goher, and possibly Mehra. They had decided that they wanted to tell me what they knew about Ivy Deuce's meeting with Meher Baba regarding the Sufis. The women Mandali reported that when Ivy Deuce met with Baba regarding the future of Sufism, she asked him if he would guarantee that the next Murshid would be illumined. According to the women Mandali, Baba did not agree to this. Ivy Deuce kept pleading with him. According to the women Mandali, Baba swept his hand in an outward motion that suggested he was done with that subject. We have heard many other stories of people asking for something repeatedly after Baba has declined their request. He would use that same gesture. Often, when this has happened, the person making the request has realized that it was best to accept Baba's initial response. Apparently, again, according to the women Mandali, Ivy Deuce interpreted this gesture to mean that Baba acquiesced to her request. The women Mandali wanted me to clearly understand that there was in no way a guarantee given that Ivy Deuce's successor would be on the plains or advanced. In August of 80, Erich felt prompted from deep down within and felt that it was his bounden duty to write a letter of warning to Ivy Deuce. He pointed out all of the ways that Baba's last warning was not being heeded, and he rang the bell of warning again. Also in 80, a new documentary film about Ivy Deuce was about to be previewed on the UC Berkeley campus, and the Berkeley group was invited to see the film. James Mackay narrated the film, so the Mandali were asked to advise because they had recommended avoiding him and his influence. They said they had no directive. Each person was free to follow their own heart. So a letter was written to Ivy by the Baba League board, and it explained that the board felt that given the democratic nature of the group, they could not speak for everyone in accepting or not accepting the invitation. They would announce the film showing and the individuals could decide for themselves. So then we have the Sufi delegation meeting, which we'll be going into in much more depth this afternoon, but I'll just briefly say the Sufis contacted the Mandali requesting to come to Meherazad, and the purpose was to show the film, Ivy's documentary, to the Mandali, and they also wanted to bring it to the tomb for blessing, and they wanted to have a meeting with the Mandali to discuss and clear up their issues with the letter that Erich wrote to Ivy and what they called misunderstandings. During their visit, the Mandali viewed this documentary and they were very touched by it. They were very loving to the Sufi group, but they would not compromise on their stance about Jim Mackay. Erich and Mani felt that in all of their years of living with and serving Meher Baba, that Jim's occult or tantric way of removing sanskaric blocks and his influence in Sufism Reoriented just struck a wrong note, and that Baba would not approve. On October 30th of 1980, Erich wrote a letter which was addressed to Neela and Meher Baba League. This was about the Sufi delegation meeting. And Erich described the meeting, and he said the Mandali took a strong and uncompromising stand with respect to Jim Mackay as being a distraction from focusing directly on Baba. Shortly after this meeting, Sufism published a pamphlet they called Sufism Speaks Out. They refuted the Mandali's statements, and they widely distributed it. They also passed it out to the public who attended the screening of Ivy's documentary at Wheeler Hall on the UC Berkeley campus. Shortly after that, there was a withdrawal phase, and the Sufis began calling their old friends who were non-Sufi Baba lovers, saying that they wouldn't be hearing from them for a while. Erich received letters saying that Sufis were either told or just felt that the gates to Meherazad were now closed to them. In a letter from Erich on January 31st, 1981, Erich replied to them that he said this was absurd, and the Mandali would always welcome them at his tomb and at his home in Meherabad. For some years after that, there was not a lot of contact between the Sufis and the other Baba lovers. Ivy passed away in September of 1981, and James Mackay was appointed the next Murshid by her. A number of Sufis could not accept the new Murshid, and they left the order. And some longtime Sufis were also expelled by him. Many of the local ex-Sufis became involved in Meher Baba League, and some became board members. In 1981, the board members decided that there should be a policy, and this was mainly as a result of Ed Van Buskirk, who, in a visit to Meherazad, said Mani told him regarding the Baba group and Sufism Reoriented, she said, "You need to make sure there is a clear boundary." So the board drafted a policy. The policy said we would not validate or cooperate with Sufism Reoriented. It had a quote by Baba, and this is the quote. "Love and direct relatedness with the avatar is the high road of all roads of inner development And while I am in the body, and for some time after I drop my body, the potential for love and direct relatedness is there and should be used. It reminded us that Baba clearly said the fragrance of his presence continues to remain active for 100 to 200 years, exactly as though he were physically present. It emphasized that we wish to align ourselves with the feelings of the Mandali. The policy declared that MBCNC would not support any activity promoting or confirming Sufism Reoriented. It said, we do not wish to be invited to any functions, nor do we wish to be relied upon to attend, provide an audience, or participate in any shows given by Sufism. It also said we would actively inform our membership about repeated warnings of Avatar Meher Baba and to the feelings of his close Mandali as they apply to the case of Sufism Reoriented. The board put this for a special membership vote of the community, and it won. In 1982, the group changed its name from Meher Baba League, first to Meher Baba Lovers of Northern California, and then to the Meher Baba Center of Northern California. And primarily, the board at that time wanted to make clear that the group was now independent of Sufism, and the name change was to reaffirm that. Okay. Time more? Oh, okay. All right, better talk fast. So, starting in the late 80s and 90s, when the Mandali visits came, things turned and changed with our relationship with Sufism. Alaba came in 1988. He visited the Sufi Center, and Barbara Bressman told us that in his talk, Alaba emphasized to love Baba above all. When Meru visited in 92, she was invited to visit both groups, but she requested that there be only one meeting. So the Sufis and the MBCNC shared the rental of a large church. This was the first time that the groups came together since the withdrawal period. Someone who had recently been expelled from Sufism protested to the board and threatened to disrupt the meeting because he felt this was breaking the policy not to cooperate. Meru personally requested that he not disrupt the meeting, and he respected her wishes. When Bao began visiting in 1985, he asked for the meetings to be inclusive of both the Sufis and the Baba lovers. He encouraged the Sufis to help with organizing his meals and care and the potlucks, and this was really a turning point for the group's reconnecting. Bao was also a catalyst for the Sufis to visit Baba's Samadhi, and Jimmakai took them all en masse in 1987. The groups gradually began reconnecting more, especially at the meetings of the home of Karen and Alan Talbot. Then the youth Sahavas in Myrtle Beach brought the teenage children of the Baba lovers and the Sufis together in Baba's love. The Sufis' view that the Mandali disapproved of them and their pain about this was voiced by their children. I'm running out of time, so yeah, I have a lot more. Finish? Okay.
No, finish when you finish. Yeah. We will just move the breaks along.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In 1996, Betty Lohman sent a letter to Mani asking her about our group's relationship and about our policy. And this was shortly before Mani passed away in August of 1996. This letter was written via Heather Nadell. Jai Baba, dear Betty, your letter came in flying on the speed of light, and today I shared it with Mani as you requested. She listened carefully and then responded with these comments on the matter of your policy regarding Sufism Reoriented. First of all, she agrees that it is a good idea to review your policy. She had suggested that the Berkeley group formulate one in 1982 because it seemed necessary at that time and served the purpose of reminding his new young lovers not to get distracted from focus on Baba. A lot of time has passed since then, and over the years here in Merazad and Mehrabad, Mani says, we have welcomed our Sufi brothers and sisters as the Baba lovers they are, enjoyed their company and loved their Baba stories, appreciated their artwork, cards, books, and music that they create in Baba's love, and encouraged those who have met Baba to tell us their stories. The main point is that any policy you have should promote your basic objective of focusing on beloved Baba, achieved through talks, music, artwork, or whatever, by individual Baba lovers regardless of whether or not they are Sufis. Hope this helps you. So, James Mackay passed away in 2001, and Carol Connor became the new Murshida and started what they call their outreach phase. In 2002, the Meher Baba Center found the Meher Baba Center, who had been called the Meher Baba Center for all those years and didn't have a center. And in 2002, we moved and found a permanent site. Harold Jameson discovered a small store for rent in El Cerrito, and Baba turned the key. Sufis have been welcome to visit the Baba Center. Duncan Knowles was invited to give a talk at the center. Diane Cobb was a special urban Sahavas guest, and a musical performance by the Leedstrin family was also enjoyed there. So this is the recent concerns that have come up. In 2013, a board member invited Sufi Farhad Shafa to give a talk to our group about God Speaks. Farhad also brought with him a new film about Sufism. Some enjoyed it, while some felt that it crossed a boundary. The film had a promotional quality, as well as long shots of Murshida Carol Connor, who Sufism Reoriented members take to be illumined. Some of our group members still feel that Meher Baba should be the sole focus of meetings. In 2010, the MBCNC board had a position vacated midterm, and according to the bylaws, someone could be drafted by the board to fill the position without a vote of the membership. The board drafted Ed Brooks, and he was re-elected for the next term. This set a precedent as the first time a committed Sufi served on the MBCNC board. In 2007, Billy Baum became involved with MBCNC and served on the board for 4 years, with 2 as board president. It was not clear at that time whether he was a committed Sufi, but by 2014, both Billy and his wife, Ellen Peskenbaum, made it known that they were at that time committed Sufis, and they were both still very active in MBCNC. They were both drafted to the nominating committee in 2014. At the committee meeting, Billy nominated Ed Brooks to serve again. Ed's nomination was voted down by the nominating committee. A few days later, this was protested by Billy because the issue of a conflict of interest had been raised at the meeting. Billy pointed out that the bylaws don't exclude Sufis from qualifying as board members. And I emailed the 1981 policy to the members of the committee to remind them of the reasons that many MBCNC members still want clear boundaries between the groups. Billy and Ellen asked the board to review the policy and requested that it be revoked. The board formed a policy committee, and the meetings were openly announced to the community, and they met over 6 months. During this time, the Dr. Gower incident occurred, and the trust sent their circular worldwide, which included Meher Baba's last warning. While the policy committee thought it was a good idea to soften the tone of the 1981 policy, the majority vote of the committee was to make it clear that the center meetings should be focused solely on Avatar Meher Baba. And I'll read you the policy as it is now. All MBCNC Center programs focus on Avatar Meher Baba. The center shall host no programs, events, or publish material in any manner that promotes a spiritual authority, teacher, school, practice, or holy person other than Avatar Meher Baba. However, anecdotal offerings of quotes or stories related to other spiritual figures that one finds personally inspiring may be shared at center gatherings or in center publications dedicated to Meher Baba's message of love and truth. The board also suggested that a vote by the membership be made as to the qualifications for serving on the board, and the proposal has not been voted on as yet. The bylaw proposal is members of the Board of Directors of the Meher Baba Center of Northern California carry out its mission and policies. They may neither claim spiritual authority for themselves nor have allegiance to any others serving as intermediaries for Meher Baba or to other spiritual teachers or religious leaders. Thank you for listening.
Lisa, the divide between Sufis and other Baba lovers happened way in the beginning. Yeah. It had nothing to do with the people who formed Meher Baba League wanting to be separate. It was the Sufis that didn't want them included that caused this group to set up in the first place. Is that correct?
I would say, having talked with Paula Gordon, who was the originator of the group, it wasn't so much that they wanted to force people. They knew that many people would not be either wanting to join Sufism or be accepted. And they were in their 20s, they were young, and they were on the Berkeley campus, and they felt that they wanted to share Baba's love, and they wanted a place for people to be able to go and hear about Baba and hear talks about Baba.
Okay.
And also, they did a lot of the anti-drug work.
But I think you said that Ivy made an announcement that they would not, they would be separate.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Well, that was in the early 70s so the group was essentially run by the Sufis mostly, kind of went back and forth as I described. At that point, she basically was announcing that they wouldn't be having their influence anymore, that it was separate, it had a separate board.
Right. Thank you.
Lisa, I have a quick question. Following up on Mera's question to you, if I understood the intention behind her question correctly, and Mera, if this was not your intention, please tell me. The story raises the point: why, if Murshid Dues set up the early Baba League as a group separate to Sufism Reoriented, why did the Sufis later think that there was a door open for them to serve on the board of our group?
No. That wasn't my intention. I just wanted to make clear to myself that it did not come externally. The decision to not include the other Baba lovers who later formed Meher Baba League came from the Sufis, from Murshida Ivy Dues directly, and not, as I have been hearing on the internet and everywhere else. It wasn't an exclusion by the Meher Baba lovers who were forming the Meher Baba League. It came from Sufism, it didn't come from anywhere else. So that's all I wanted to clarify. Anyways, I think it's time for us to take a short break. Did you have a question? No.
Maybe later. Clarification of I thought there was, in 1981, there was already a policy for a separation of groups, and it seems that in the present day, it's a reformation and reclarification of that policy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, 10-minute break. There's tea and coffee and small nibbles in the back.